Welcome back to Heaving Bosoms, the podcast where two friends giggle, snort, and recap their way through a new romance novel, usually each week. This week, we're here with The Autumn Bride by Anne Gracie. It's going to be part 1 of The Autumn Bride, and it is filled with so much lady love and stick it to the manness that we are all about it. Let's jump right in. Hi, Erin.
Hey, Mel.
How are you?
Good.
Excellent.
Listener, I just told Mel that I might have a story that might be funny, but I'm not sure if it's funny. And then she said, I'll let you know on the podcast. And then we started recording. So I don't know if this is like, it was funny in the moment. I'm not sure if like, what are you drinking?
Erin, why do you always have to call me out?
But it's like the largest thing of apple juice or something. It's actually a 2-gallon jug.
It's actually unsweetened applesauce. I couldn't be bothered to use a spoon, so I'm just drinking out of the jar.
Listener, Melody Carlisle is drinking a gallon jug of applesauce.
It's not.
She's leaning back from the microphone so that you won't hear it sloshing into her mouth because it's not a liquid.
You guys, it is a mere 48-ounce jar.
How much ounces is a gallon?
More.
More?
Yeah.
Not much more. That is a big old, that is a 2-hander jug.
Well, you're not wrong. Okay, so you know at airports, Erin.
Ooh,
now everybody knows my dirty secrets. I thought this was a safe
choosing
space.
To do that. Why would you think it's a safe place? I called you out when you ate paper. I called you out when you were wearing a reindeer onesie.
Technically, I called me out when I ate paper. Thank you very much.
Everything going all the way
tricky.
Horizontal to eat an apple. I come here prepared, I would have you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just me and my porg mug.
It's true.
All right. So in airports, when you're at the baggage claim and the bags are about to come out, there's usually like some kind of sound, you know, like a meh or something that's like, the bags are coming.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody else is in airports as much as me, but like, trust me, there's usually, it's like a bell or like a horn or a beep
like
or
horn.
Something. Yeah, it depends on the airport. But like this particular airport had like a loud ring that kind of sounded like an alarm, but like not really, like a very friendly alarm if it sounded like an alarm at all. And I was in the baggage area and it was kind of deserted. And but I mean, there were people there, but it wasn't like a crazy crowd. And the alarm for this baggage thingy went off, and a woman next to it, the woman next to it screamed, "Run!" and then hit the floor.
No.
Yes, it wasn't even that loud or alarming to anyone else.
Wait, but also. She shouted an order
run,
and then dropped to the ground. Did the opposite.
Like at least 100 people were in the like large room. Everyone heard her and everyone just looked confused. Like no one was at all panicked. No one heeded her like warning. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. And then she just slowly, calmly got up and then just stood there waiting for her bags, having realized what it was. I've never seen in my life somebody who should be more publicly humiliated than that woman. And she like held her shit together. So my advice to all of you HBs is to be like that lady. Like just hold it together. Yeah, she didn't cry and go to the bathroom. She just stood there acknowledging that all 100 of us knew what an idiot she was and waited for her bags.
Oh my God.
It was amazing. It was the funniest thing I've seen in a really long time.
I have never done anything like that. Although I will say I startle very easily.
Me too.
So not only do I startle easily, but I also have a habit of like leaving things out on the counter, like food or whatever sometimes. Or I also get into his like food stashes. Like he'll buy something and he'll be like, "Oh man, this sounds so good." And I'm like, "Yeah, Michael, you should get that for you. I'm not going to eat it though. And then he'll come home and 3 of his high-calorie granola bars are just gone. And so at first he was like, oh, I think we have a mouse. I was like, big mouse. Yeah, it's a really serious business mouse. And then he was like, so would you say it's like a rouse from The Princess Bride, like an ROUS? And I was like, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. And so now my biggest nickname is his Rouse. Because one time he came into a room and just like turned on an adjacent light. Like another light was already on. I was standing in the kitchen. He turned on the light over the kitchen and I screamed and jumped in a 360 manner and like had my guard up. And he was like, without blinking, he just goes, "You fucking Rouse," and goes to the refrigerator.
I startle like that all the time when David comes around a corner, but my excuse is that he's usually trying to scare me in a darkened house. And then he'll like come around the corner just like getting something out of the fridge or something. And I'll be like, oh. And he's like, I live here. I'm like, yeah, but like when you scare me all the time, you have to like give me a break a little bit. But can I tell you a story about granola bars?
Yes, please.
You know, like those Chewy granola bars, those 90-calorie Chewy granola bars, like several companies make them. Oh, God. We identify things by the number of calories in them. That's probably just not a good sign for our health. But anyway, I'm like, you know the 90-calorie granola bars, not the 250 ones that are crunchier? Anyway, so the 90-calorie Chewy granola bars, he bought. So I can't eat those because of my intolerance. And if I eat one, I get like a headache. I just feel just generally bad, like drank too much wine bad. Yeah. And he bought a big thing of those from Costco, like the biggest thing, the peanut butter kind, the chocolate chip kind, and whatever is the other more inferior kind. And he bought them because we have a child that visits every once in a while. So we like, have them there for the child. And I just kept eating them and being like, ugh, I feel terrible. And he'd be like, did you eat one of the Chewy granola bars? And I'd be like, ugh, yeah, I ate one of the Chewy granola bars. And I just kept doing it. And he's just like, stop eating those. And I'm like, I can't help it. They're so delicious. And they're in the cupboard.
And they're here.
Right. That's the thing. You open up the cupboard. And what are you going to do? You're going to cook? Or are you going to eat a granola bar that will inevitably make you sick? You're going to do the second one. Or are you going to
eat 6 of them?
He had to take those granola bars. He took them and he put them in the gun safe.
Yes! Actually.
And I was like, you can't put... She wants to tell the story so bad that she's got both fists and she's vibrating her whole body. But anyway, I was like, you just put them in the gun safe? Like, that's so cruel first. Cruel. And he's like, it's for your own safety. And I was like, well, joke's on you, because I live here too, and I have the combination for the gun safe. And he was like, and I should, because it's been told to me probably 100 times. And he's like, tell me the combination to the gun safe. And I was like, it's a secret, so I'm not going to, because it's our secret gun safe combination. It's probably written it down and told it to me 100 times. And now I can't get to my Chewy bars because I'm such an idiot. Anyway.
So first of all, Michael and I have actually talked about investing in either one of those things where you lock it you set the timer. Because like my issue is that I'm a snacker. And I always want to snack on the worst thing. So we're like, what if we get one of those things that it will only open every 24 hours?
Yeah, I've seen them.
So I just grab 2, close it up, and it won't open for 24 hours. That sounds amazing. Except, of course, I'll grab a dozen. Mm-hmm. And then the other one is getting some of those things that like locks, like getting a gun safe, but for food. They have those too, that only Michael will know the combination to. Who knows?
Oh my God.
I'm actually a lot better now. Anyway, let's talk about DoubleTree cookies real quick, and then we have to get into this amazing book. Okay.
No, we don't.
So I used to work.
Sorry.
Okay. I used to work for a company that had a lot of dealings with hotels. So they would come and visit us, and a lot of times they would bring gifts and all that sort of thing. And DoubleTree is notorious for their amazing 400-calorie, buttery, chocolate chippy, walnutty cookie, right? So at around Christmas time, a bunch of DoubleTree hotels in all different cities would visit us. And each of them would bring us, like each person in the office, a canister of 6 of these cookies. Now,
Yikes.
I don't know if you remember, listener, but I am incredibly lactose intolerant. I also have the sweetest tooth that's ever existed in a human. I don't mean to say that I'm like this special snowflake of sweet tooth glory.
Melody, you're the
really
specialest snowflake I've ever met in my life. Just own it.
Thank you. Okay, so I was sitting at my desk staring at this canister, and I thought to myself, do I eat 1 a day and feel sick for a week? Or
eat them
do
all
I just
now?
eat them all right now?
Oh man, I've been there.
Yeah, I ate them all. Like, with impunity. All right.
That's why when people are like, drink a glass of wine, even though you're intolerant, I'm not going to waste that on wine. I'm going to waste it on Chewy granola bars.
Yeah, obviously.
We've got other alcohols in the world. There's nothing to replace a Chewy granola bar.
Nothing. Not a single thing. Okay. We are here to talk about The Autumn Bride by Anne Gracie.
This takes place in England times.
England times. Specifically, it's a Regency romance.
And actually, my terrible accent from, what did we read that I did? Firelight or whatever. That hello. There's somebody in here that talks like that.
Yeah,
so
Daisy.
Yep.
I'm excited. Okay.
This was originally recommended.
I've got Lady Beatrice down.
Okay.
So don't worry about that.
Okay. So this was originally recommended to us through a 5-star iTunes review after. This is how backed up we are on 5-star iTunes reviews, y'all. Is that when we did the 3 Tiffany Rise books last fall and winter, we had talked about how much Melody super loves a good side character. And that's her number one passion in the world. And this review said, if Melody loves a good side character, you have to read this book, The Autumn Bride. So that's how it was recommended to us, and it did not disappoint on that front. Oh, for sure.
Oh my God. It hit the spot on every fucking level. There is so much lady love in this book. So much stick it to the man and stick it to societal norms lady love that I'm just I was glowing reading this thing. I swear to Christ.
Was I correct that you were having a little bit of a hard time this week and you're like, I haven't even started the book. And I was like, read the book. It'll make you feel better. Did it?
It made me feel better.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Okay, so we have Abby Chantry and Max Davenham. The prologue opens, and Max is 18. His uncle has just died. He is inheriting. And instead of inheriting, a vast amount of estates and golds and all the goodness, he finds out that his uncle has completely ruined them, 4 times over. So,
real bad.
The ruination of this family is real insane. So, he is such a good dude that he's the only thing I want to make sure of is that my aunt is taken care of until death because she knows nothing of this.
And she's all that he has left, right? There's no other relatives hanging around.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No, she's it. And frankly, she was the only adult in his life that was ever good to him. His mom ran off and his dad immediately sent him off to boarding school, and it was just the worst.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so he's deciding that he's going to save the family fortune or rebuild the family fortune, I should say. And that's where we leave him. Then, 10 years later, everybody, we meet up. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say it's kind of important that they say in this thing that they cannot. He was like, okay, well, we'll just put everybody in one of our small houses. And they're like, you cannot afford any of your houses. Everything must be sold to include all your houses, and you still will not be okay.
Yes.
So when this book opens and he still has House Davenham,
yes,
I was a little confused by that. I couldn't figure out how he saved it, and that's explained in the book. But I think it's important that they explicitly said, you cannot save this house.
Yeah, and he was like, the only thing you cannot sell, I'd like to keep the family estate, but I absolutely have to keep the London house because that's where my aunt lives, and that's where she needs to die. We can't do it.
Right.
And so she lives there.
Yeah.
So we open up. 10 years later, everybody. Abby Chantry. I don't fucking know. I don't fucking care. Nope. She is the most adorable governess that ever governessed. She's, of course, working 6.5 days a week, and the family would have her mending and doing all the things if she stayed at home during her half day off.
Right. But she doesn't. No matter how cold or blustery or Londony the outside is, she will just go walk the fuck around town because she'd rather do that than do more work for this horrible lady.
Oh my God. And after meeting the family, I was like, dear Jesus.
Yeah.
All right. So she's heading home because if she's even 30 seconds late getting home at 6 p.m., he will dock her a full day's pay, which the injustice of it all, you know? So she's running home. And all of a sudden, this maidservant with a street urchin accent, this girl tugs on her arm and she's like, Abby. Oh no. What does she say, Erin? Go ahead.
What?
Abby.
Oh. Hello, Abby Chantry. It's like
your sister's in trouble.
You know, once in speech, I did a Cuban Pakistani accent.
Oh,
and it was
Erin.
spot fucking on. No, it was good. Don't even. You weren't around.
I wasn't around.
I finaled that, so don't even.
Excellent. I just don't know how that works.
Yeah, well, no one knew what it was supposed to sound like. That's how it worked. Anyway, so she's...
Okay. So the girl's like, your sister's in trouble. You have to come with me right now. And Abby's like, I'll lose my job if I do this, or I'll at least lose a day's pay. But if my sister's in
also
trouble...
like, yeah, how do you even know my sister? She knew her sister's name and she knew her name. And she's like, no one in the world knows both of our names. So there's no way that this woman is, luring me into a place where somebody's going to take my kidneys.
Right, exactly.
Which was apparently prevalent in England.
She talks a lot about white slavery, and that made me real uncomfortable on a lot of levels, but okay.
White slavery seemed to be sex slavery.
I think so, too.
That seemed to be I think she was talking about the race of whites.
Well, right, because apparently, only dark folks should be the slaveries.
Yeah, it was. There were a few awkward sentences there, but I think what she was
very,
saying,
of the times, yeah.
Yeah, I think she was saying that it was common for people to get lured away to be sold into some kind of sex slavery, but she was confident that that was not going to be her because she isn't cute.
Right, and ironically, that is what she's going to have to save her sister from. Because she gets to the brothel. This girl explains to her that she's a maidservant at this brothel. And the dude who now owns it is abducting girls in various ways and then forcing them into prostitution, only keeping them in underwear and locking all the doors so that they have no chance of leaving.
Because it's England. You can't just run out of the street in your underpants.
Well, and it's also fucking cold.
Yeah, it's cold.
But
you can't just go knocking on somebody's door in your underpants and be like, it's cold, let me in, I'm in trouble. Because they would be like, you slut.
Yeah, they would either be like, well, great, sex delivery, or rape delivery, or they'd be like, get out of here, you hummuckhutzler.
Yeah.
Okay, so she gets all the way to the brothel, and the dude of the hour shows up, and Daisy's like, oh God, you gotta go, come back in an hour, bring a cloak, and bring some shoes. So she goes home. And she asks the people, they're like, you lose your pay. You're late. You need to feed our children or whatever. They need to go to bed. And we're going to the theater.
And we're already late.
Yeah, we're late to the theater. So she's like, my sister's in town unexpectedly. I need her to stay with us. And these fucking assholes are like, a stranger staying with my babies? Never. And so they tell her no. And she's like, is that your last word? Because I'm definitely going to do it anyway. And they're like, that is our last word. So they leave. An hour later, she gets her cloak and her shoes and she heads back to the brothel. She's standing outside of the really imposing gate with the spikes on the top, and it's all very Cloak and Dagger.
Literally.
Yeah, right. The gate opens and her sister comes out and they have this tearful reunion in the best way. And Daisy's like, get out of here, you! Like
Daisy's the maid.
Yeah, Daisy's the
She's
maid.
like, scram!
Yeah.
You gotta get out of here.
Have your reunion somewhere else. And then Jane, who is Abby's sister, is like, we have to take this other girl, Damaris, with us. And Abby, bless her heart, is like, this painted whore? Like, her inner monologue about this girl
But she also admonishes herself 10 minutes later. She immediately is like, because she's wearing horror stuff. She's got makeup on. She's got her hair in like the chopsticks hair.
Like a coiffure, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they've got like eyeliner lining out.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, she's totally a painted whore. And then like 10 minutes later, her sister's like, she poisoned me so that I wouldn't have to sleep with men, so that I could be a virgin. Like she gave her some kind of tea that would make her sick so that the men would be like, gross, she's vomiting. I don't want that one. And then Abby's like, I loves you. I'm so sorry. I thought bad things about you.
Yeah.
Come.
And to be fair, there a lot of her inner monologue is like, it's going to be hard enough to take my sister back to the house and like get away with that. But then if I show up with this lady, like, how are we going to explain that?
And then she finds out what the maidservant did to get them out. And then she loves all three of them.
Yeah. And so Daisy's like, I'm also leaving. I'm not going with you, but I am leaving because like I will be myrtleated. He will beat me to death after finding out that I got you out. So they run. And when they finally stop, Abby's like, all right, Daisy, you have to come with us too. At least for the night, you have to come with us too. And Daisy's like, miss, I couldn't. And anyway, they talk her into it. They take her back to the house and she sneaks them into the house. They go straight up to their room and she's going to go get some food for them. And the dear butler catches her and is like, you better take half the pie instead of just a slice because, you know, you're getting in trouble anyway.
Yeah, they're going to dock your wages anyway. They're going to dock you for the whole pie. So just take the whole pie. Mm-hmm. I had a band. Sorry, guys. Yeah. I had a band director one time that if you were minutes late to the marching band practice that started at 7 a.m., you had to do a lap around the football. You had to run a lap around the football field for every minute that you were late. But there was no punishment to just not going to practice. Oh. And so if you were like 1 minute late, it was just like, fuck it, I'll just go back to sleep. Like, yeah, exactly. That's what that is. If you take a slice of the pie.
What did you play?
I started on the flute, and then I decided I didn't like the flute because people who play instruments will know that there's a personality to the different people that play the instruments. No offense to flautists.
You didn't like the flute crew?
I didn't like the flute crew very much. I didn't fit in with the flute crew. So I was in marching band, concert band, symphonic band, and jazz band. And I sat first chair in the symphonic band. So I transitioned to piccolo for the marching band, but still I was in with those flautists. So I decided, sorry guys. So I decided to switch.
Flautists.
Yeah. I switched to saxophone because it has the same fingerings as flute, and then I could play in a more prominent position in the jazz band. So I was playing flute in some of the bands and then saxophone in the other bands. Then I got a crush on a snare drummer.
Okay.
Are you familiar with what a ride cymbal is?
No.
So ride cymbals just hold up their cymbals in the marching band and march in front of the snare drummers, and they play you like a drum set.
And they go... Those ones?
But you hang them up like a hi-hat or like a whatever in front of the snare drummer and you move around and then he plays you in various ways.
Oh, he plays you in various ways.
Oh, yeah. And they call you... They call you a ride cymbal. So you ride whatever snare drummer you're on. So I was like, I'm going to transition.
Your cutie patootie snare drummer?
Yeah. So I'm going to transition to drumline. But then after a little bit, that didn't work out. So then I decided I had a crush on a trombone player. Or maybe he was a tuba player. I don't know. So then I went to euphonium. You asked. So then I went to euphonium and sousaphone. And then I played that for a little bit. And then I played a different instrument in every band. And it didn't work out with that guy either.
Wow.
Well, it worked out till it didn't. It was a good strategy. The strategy was fine.
I have never, ever doubted your stratagems.
Fair.
All right. So they decide that they are going to live together forever because the next day, they catch all the girls in the room and they're like, what the actual fuck? We told you not to do this. And she's like, well, my sister's in town. She has no place to stay. This was our only option. And they're basically like, well, they have to go and you need to get to work. And she's like, no, I have to at least get like a half day off so that I can go get them lodgings or something. And they're like, that is completely unacceptable. No way. There's no way we're going to do that. And she's like, so is that your last word? And they're like, yes. And she's like, well, then I am tendering my resignation. And the mom is like, well, then who is going to watch my children? She's like, maybe you for once. The poor things. Like, maybe you should get to know them. Although it seems like that would, no. So now they're out on their ears with only her savings. They get to an inn and they post up there. They decide that they're going to be sisters forever and that they're going to face the world together. And they cook up this scheme that they're going to get jobs and save up enough money so that they can go to Bath and get Jane a good marriage. Because Jane is like the one who really wants a marriage and is pretty. Damaris is really good at painting things. Daisy is really good at making dresses. And Abby is pretty much good at everything except she's plain.
But Damaris is good at cooking things, not
Oh, I'm
painting
sorry.
things.
Sorry, you're right. She's really, really good at cooking things.
Yeah.
Yes. She is also good at painting things, but you find that in book 2, which, yes, I read. Okay.
Wait, on like Thursday you hadn't started the book.
Yeah.
Okay, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
I went down some rabbit holes.
So who does Damaris get with? I want to know. Is it Freddie?
It is Freddie, and they're the cutest. Okay.
Great.
Okay, so then it cuts to 6 weeks later, and the girls are pretty much penniless.
It's not going good.
Yeah, Jane has a really, really terrible fever.
Mhm.
Damaris is the only one that has a quasi job, and it's really bad. So they're incredibly desperate. Abby needs to figure out a way to pay for a doctor for her sister. And so she's like, you know what? Fuck it. Hand me those breeches. I'm gonna cat burgle. Oh, she's a cat burglar, everybody.
And this is important because her father...
Yeah.
So her parents eloped to be together and then were shunned by both their houses. So they were ladies, lords, peoples, but they were shunned. And then they didn't have enough money and her mom was sick and her dad went out to rob a stagecoach and was shot.
And died.
And then her mom died of her sickness. And that's how her and Jane ended up in a horrible situation where they were at Pillsbury Home for Distressed Ladies, Children's or whatever. So this is a big deal for her because this is literally how her dad died.
Yes.
And set up her family for ruin. But she must do it.
So she goes out and she crawls across a wall, and then she hooks up onto a drain pipe, and then she climbs into a window, and it's all very cat burglary, and you know how I feel about that.
It's all very exciting.
It is. And then she gets into the window. It's super dark, and out of the darkness, she hears a voice that's like, "Have you come to murder me?
Are you going to murder me?" And she's
like, no, of course not.
She also notices that there's nothing to burgle in the room. The room is like completely bare. Everything's dirty and dusty and horrible. And it's smelly in there. And she's like,
there's a really
shit.
emaciated old woman laying on a bed. She's really dirty. She smells awful. She smells like the worst beggar ever. And there's an untouched bowl of gruel right next to the bed.
All crusty.
So they get to know one another a little bit. And Abby begins to think that maybe this old woman is being neglected and abused by her servants.
She literally, the old woman asks her to kill her. She's like, "Do you have a bullet for me?" And she's like, "God, no, hell no. Like, no, I was just going to come steal some stuff, but there's nothing to steal, so I'll be on my way." Yeah. And she's like, "If you come back, could you bring a bullet or something like that?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this poor old woman.
Yeah, so she goes back out. Jane recovers by the next morning, and all is well, except that now she's worried about the old woman next door. So she puts on the best lady clothes she has, like her little governess.
Her gray governess dress. Yeah.
And she goes to take a card to the next door, and she wants to go see the old woman. The butler comes, and he's this bloated, pompous, awful person. And he sends her away saying the old woman is not at home. She's like, all right, well, please pass her this note. And then the next night, she goes back by the same means. And she's like, okay, did you get my note? Because in the previous conversation, the old woman was like, nobody comes to see me anymore.
Everyone's forgotten me. I don't have any more friends anymore. Very sad stuff.
It's so sad. And she's like, I don't think it's that you have any friends. I think it's that your butler's not letting anybody get to you. So the old woman is like, all right, I think that you and your sisters should come live with me. And Abby's like, oh boy, like that's a dream come true. But at the same time,
I don't want to take advantage.
I don't want to take advantage of you. Like you don't know everything.
Yeah. Also, because they came from a brothel, it's like, oh, am I bringing ruination upon you? God, I'm so sick of ruining things.
I know.
It's so easy.
It's so goddamn easy because both of the girls that were in the brothel, neither of them had actually been touched in the brothel.
No.
They were both abducted by force, like tied up and sent there and then locked away. And yet, so basically, she's like, I'm not going to agree until you know everything about us. And she tells she tells Lady Beatrice everything. Tells them about the brothel, tells them about getting sacked by her governess, tells her about, I think she tells her about like her family's death and like all the shit. Yeah. Tells her that Daisy grew up in the brothel just as a maidservant, not as some of the wares, I guess they would put it. Mm-hmm. And the old woman's like, well, none of that makes any difference to me. So great. Move in. Huzzah. Yeah. So they do.
They have to hatch a plan to get over there. So there's two guys that live in their like little shanty apartment building that they live in named Featherby and the other one.
William,
sure. And William used to be a big boxer guy and Featherby used to be a butler, but he got fired because he was an alcoholic.
Yes.
And so they live together and they've decided they're not going to drink anymore and they've made like a pact.
And they're fucking adorable.
Yeah. So Abby says to Featherby, the ex-butler, would you mind putting on some of your butler shit again and dressing up William and like getting in a carriage and pretending we're ladies who have luggage and like arriving at Lady Beatrice's house so we can get in, get past the butler, that kind of thing. So they do that. They get past the shitty butler basically by force. I think doesn't William like knock him down or something?
Kind of. She's talking to him. He's trying to send her away. And William's just like, all right, well, look out. I'm coming through with this giant trunk. Yeah. And he just sort of pushes past him and they all get into the foyer. Mm-hmm. And that's when they see that a house that should have 12 servants or more only has 4 of them. Mm-hmm. And
they're all eating roast beef and shit.
Oh, yeah.
And they're feeding Lady Beatrice gruel, and they're all disgusting, and they've got, and the house is gross and horrible. Yeah.
She's trying to go up the stairs. The cook, who is the butler's wife, is trying to stop her. Daisy comes over, and just like the scrapper she is, kicks her right in the shins.
Daisy's the best.
So good. I can't wait to read her book, because she's
Who's gonna be her person?
I know him already because I read book 2. Actually, you know him too because he shows up in the next chapter. Oh, it's so good. I'm so excited. I'm actually least excited about Jane's book. I'm going to read them all. But I'm least excited about Jane's book.
On my work phone while we're talking.
Ha jerk. So she runs up the stairs and Lady Beatrice is like, oh, you did it. You did it. And the rest of the girls come up after she cleans her up a tiny bit. And what ensues is the sweetest, most tragic beginning to a forever friendship that's ever happened. Because they send the old servants off. Like, the old servants sort of scram because they know that if they're reported, which of course they will be, they're going to face some charges. So everybody goes upstairs and they're like, okay, we're going to take you in to have a bath. Oh, no. First, they call a doctor. They call that Scottish doctor.
That awesome Scottish doctor. He's like, well, first they try to call the fashionable doctor, who is her doctor, who is the doctor to all the ton. What does it mean? I don't care.
Nobody knows.
He's the fancy doctor. And he's like, I can't even get out there for like 4 days. And he's the one who told her, like, bed rest, be in the dark, shitty
that fucking
diet
asshole.
of nothing. Yeah. So they call this doctor, this cool Scottish doctor, to the poor, and he prescribes her he can come out right away, a nourishing diet, sunshine, and as for needing quiet and rest, what nonsense. She should, he said firmly, have as much activity and excitement as she could bear. And I'm like, what a great doctor.
What a great doctor. Yeah, she needs a little infusion of, just life. So they are so cute. And William brings up the tub and all the things. They help her because they didn't want to move her. She was so frail. What? Yeah, it's Flynn. I just read the
synopsis of Daisy's book on my work.
It's Flamboyant Flynn. It's so good.
My God.
Okay. Sorry, but back to this one.
I hope the U.S. government is seeing that I'm Googling the summer bride.
That's right.
On my... Anyway, whatever.
Yeah. All right. So they get her into a tub. Daisy and Abby are bathing her, and everybody else is going to clean up her room because it is in a shambles. God, the bath is so good. Daisy's like, all right, you get her back parts. I'll get her front parts. Here we go.
She's just like vigorously scrubbing this old lady's lady parts. And she's basically like, we got to wake these up. Like,
yeah. So they're talking, and I don't remember exactly what happens, but she talks about like being a stranger or whatever. Mm-hmm. And Lady Beatrice, I think, says something about, well, anybody who scrubbed my lady parts like that can no longer be considered a stranger. Mm-hmm. And then Daisy like throws it right back to her.
Here's what it
later.
is. Here's what it is. They find her hair is all disgusting and matted. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we're sorry, but we're going to have to cut your hair. And Daisy jumps in and she's like, bobs are the most fashionist thing right now. Like, having your hair cut off is actually really cool. Like, you're going to love it. And Lady Beatrice says, don't try and butter me up, young woman. I've never trusted the word of people with their hands on my privates. Just do what you have to do. And then later, she says to Daisy that they've barely been acquainted. And Daisy's like, whatever. I just had my hands all over your privates. So we're friends now.
I've got it. She goes, you're good girls, both of you. Not many would have done that for a stranger. Stranger? Daisy had been tidying up the towels. Who are you calling a stranger? I've had me hands on your privates, remember? And right before the bath, she tells Abby that she's going to help. And her reasoning is, I reckon I've seen more naked bodies than you've had hot dinners. So the whole scene is fabulous. And then, oh God. And then they come out into the room. It is completely transformed. They've moved the bed. They've scrubbed everything. There's fresh flowers places. Like, yeah,
Featherby and William, they're great servants. They're good. They're good at their jobs. Good stuff.
And the girls too. Everybody just pitched in. Mm-hmm. So they put her back on the bed. She is like misty-eyed. She can't even handle her
window
life
so that she can get sunlight.
Yeah. She's all misty-eyed. She can't even talk because she's just so moved by the kindness that she's been shown. She hasn't been shown in probably years.
Did you say they fired the whole staff?
Yes,
they fired everybody.
Yeah. And then they're like, well, I can find you a butler, but Featherby's actually, he's got butler experience and everything else. And Lady Beatrice, in like the best, most English way, is like, well, then I suppose you'll do. Yeah. And Featherby like loses it. He doesn't. He's very dignified.
Yeah, he loses it in a very like butler way.
In a very butler way.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just like, you will not be disappointed, madam. Like, thank you so very much.
Because all he wanted was to be a butler again, but he couldn't because he got fired so bad from his last place, so he didn't have a reference.
Yeah, he reminds me of the guy with the limp in Downton Abbey who gets to be head valet, even though of his because of his. Oh, it's so good. And so everybody's fucking best friends. Mm-hmm. Everybody is so happy. And then next chapter, we get to meet Max in now present times.
The Indies.
In some Indies of
he
some
does
sort.
Sailing now. He does trading now. He does spices. Mm-hmm. He's all over the place, colonizing. Like a mofo.
Oh, just capitalizing on the colonization.
Over colonization. And he's got two buddies. Their names are Flynn and Ash. And they do ship sailing, trading, merchanting together.
They do.
And they've been real successful at it. And he's got a letter, right? Does he have a letter yet? Yeah, he got a letter.
The two things we find out in this chapter are that he has oodles of money now. Like he can pay off the rest of the interest and all
with the shit. Shrewdness of his businessmanship
and acumens, I guess. So then the second thing they find out is that some old biddy from the hood has sent him a letter.
The Tunnish
hood, right? She sends him a letter that's like, it dropped into the water, so you can't see most of the writing, but everything you can see is really, really concerning.
He knows phrases. It's from her because it's written in lilac, and she only ever writes letters in purple, so he knows it's Lady, is it like Ebbingham or something like that?
Bedlington or something like that.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Yeah, sure.
So she actually shows up a lot in the second book, and it's real nice.
You know, when we read The Duke and I, which was my first England Times book that I had ever made it all the way through, I thought the ton just meant people whose last names ended with tons, because that was true of every family in that book, because it was the Bridgertons and the Featheringtons and like everybody ended in a ton. So I was like, oh, that's just a nickname for all these dumb families. Not true. I don't know. I still don't really understand what it means.
No, I don't know what it means.
I just wanted to confess that to you.
I love that. I love that about you.
Okay. Moving on.
So basically, the letter includes phrases like deeply concerned, taking advantage, a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
All right. So he rushes back to England.
Which means it takes him 6 weeks.
Yeah.
He rushes.
It takes him like a month.
I don't know.
Yeah, it takes him a really long time.
It's just so funny because like now you would be like, I must get back to New York City. And you'd be there by the end of the day. And he's like, there's all this urgency, you know, like charter the first ship. And then he sits there for like weeks.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I just imagine him at the helm, like pointing ahead, like, we'll be home to my aunt. Yeah.
All right. So he shows up and immediately goes to see the man of business that has been in charge of his aunt's affairs since he's been gone. It's the guy's son, because the actual dude died.
Right.
And the business has like gone to shit because this guy is incompetent, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
He tells him all about this harpy that showed up at his business being like, you've taken terrible care of her. I've sacked all of the servants. I am in charge now. Here are the people that you need to be paying. And Lady Beatrice insisted that they each get a small stipend as well, the 4 girls. Oh, P.S. When they showed up at the house, she was about to say her last name, but somebody had been looking for them at the apartment building. And that is really concerning because of the brothel bullshit. So she was about to say her last name, and what came out of her mouth was Chance. So they are now the Chance sisters. Because if nothing else,
they got a chance now, and they took a chance.
And because they found each other by chance. It's so good. Okay, so we're moving on. So this guy totally freaks him out. He's like, oh shit, now I understand.
This harpy that's taken advantage. It makes sense with the letter and everything. Right. So he had thought it's too early to call on my aunt. And then he's like, nope, not now. I'm going in there because like no early is too early to save her from this advantage taking harpy of this senile woman.
Exactly. And there's a little piece of me that's like, I don't know if it would have been like that had the dude been like, the butler is blah, blah, blah. Or whatever, but he was particularly incensed that it was a lady.
Yeah, it was like this harpy. And it was totally like how she had spoken to. So the guy was like, she spoke to me and blah, blah, blah. And Max Davenham was like, oh, this guy got like just completely railroaded by a lady. Like a lady came in here, walked all over him. He needs to not be my person anymore.
Exactly.
Not only because my aunt has been taken advantage of, but also because he let a lady talk him down, which no good man would ever do.
How dare you? Ladies need a firm hand, Max.
Firm hand. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so he shows up at the house.
Speaking of a firm hand.
He refuses to give them his name or anything and just barrels in. He has not shaved. He has longish hair. And Abby keeps on saying how, like, he's a Viking. He looks like such a Viking. Oh, yes, please.
May I read you an entire page?
I would like that.
So he comes in. He gets past the footman and the butler. And then he's trying to go up the stairs. And Abby stopped him on the stairs. And she says, stop. Abby braced herself, flinging her hands out to bar his way. You can't come up here. She fully expected him to shove her roughly aside, as he'd shoved Featherby, but amazingly he stopped. She had an impression of a hard, chiseled jaw, a bold nose, a firm, compressed mouth, and he was tall. Even standing 3 steps below her, he was taller than she. Her heart was pounding. What sort of man would shove his way into a lady's house with so little ceremony? Oh, because they don't even know it's Max at this point. It's just like a guy. He's been like, I demand to come inside. Because they know she has a nephew, but they think he's like off in the Indies or whatever. At this hour of the morning, he was casually dressed in a loose, dark blue coat, white shirt, buff breeches, and high black boots. His cravat was carelessly knotted around his strong, tanned throat. Despite the almost civilized clothing, he looked like some sort of marauder. His jaw was unshaven, rough with dark bristles, his thick, dark hair. was unfashionably long and caught back with a strip of leather. Gray eyes glittered in a tan face. A dark Viking. Surely no Englishman would have skin that dark, burnished by years under a foreign sun. So she's
into it.
Yeah, she goes on and on. There's a whole other paragraph under that just about his cheekbones. And, a shiver runs down her spine and his confidence, and it goes on and on.
Well, and then he grabs her by the waist because William, the footman, the big former pugilist William, comes running up the stairs to stop this marauder. He grabs her by the waist and just shoves her into William and then runs up the stairs to go see his aunt. And the scene he finds inside is so adorable. They're Daisy and Jane are both on the bed. Actually, all three of them are on the bed with Lady Beatrice. Daisy's painting her toenails gold. And then the other girls are reading magazines and novels. And it's so cute. And so Abby's like, we tried to stop him. And she's like, dear Max, it's so good to see you. So cute. Basically, he's like, the fuck. Who are these bitches? And she's like, those are my nieces. He's like, I am your only goddamn living relative.
But first, Abby bursts in and she's like, he tripped Featherby and shoved Max. And, oh no, she's like, he beat up these two guys downstairs. And he's like, they tripped. And she's like, well, a gentleman would have offered his cart. Like, she's trying to warn Lady Beatrice of this guy that just burst into the house. And she's like, well, he's not a gentleman because a gentleman would have offered his card and waited. And it says, one dark winged brow rose in a sardonic arch. Had a lot of experiences with gentlemen, have you? Abby bared her teeth at him in a smile. Not as much as I'd like. And as he absorbed the implications of that, she added sweetly, and none at all in London so far. Vixen, Max said under his breath. I just loved that passage so much.
Yeah, it's so good.
Anyway, so yeah, she's like, these are my nieces. And he's like, oh God, this is bad. They're really taking advantage if she's like...
They've wormed her way into her psyche.
Yeah.
So he's convinced that he's gonna kick them out. But he has to do so subtly because he still doesn't want to attract Lady Beatrice's ire. So it's a whole thing. So...
But also,
Abby,
he can tell that these four aren't sisters to each other either because they all look different. Daisy has a crazy Cockney accent and the other three don't. He knows not only are they not her nieces, but they are not sisters to each other. Also, there's 20 cats in the room.
There are 3 cats. They brought kittens with them.
If there are 3 cats, there may as well be 20 cats.
That's
3
true.
is 20. That you can have 1 cat,
true.
you can have 2 cats. Once you have 3, it's 20. 3 and 20 are the same number when it comes to cats.
And the friskiest one, the most mischievous one, is named after Max, and it's so cute. Okay, so Abby's about to run some errands, and he's like, "I'm gonna get to know this harpy. I'm gonna show her what's up."
Yeah, I am.
So he gets a hackney, and he's like, "I'll drive you," and she's like, "No, I don't." God, ugh, and gets into the hackney cab.
Always having these internal monologues where she's looking at him. And well, one of them said something when she and her sisters were chatting that night. One of them was like, Davenham's pretty super handsome. Oh, it was what's her name? What's the dark haired one's name?
Damaris.
Damaris was like, he's pretty handsome. And Jane's like, he's crazy old. And Abby's like, well, old, he's not that old. And he's only 30 and I'm 24 and he's not old to me. And I don't even mind the beard and I definitely don't mind the long hair. And I've certainly never said no to a man that's broad shouldered and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I do appreciate a man with strong thighs. I was pretty sure he had. And then it's all these ellipses. And then she's like, not that I think of Max Davenham in that way.
No.
There's a lot of that. A lot of and then I was lost in his eyes, but not as if I would ever be. So it's
not as if I want to smooch him or anything.
Yeah.
So she gets into the cab and she's asking, I think, to go to the post office or something.
Yeah, she wrote a bunch of letters. This is important. She wrote a bunch of letters when she got to Aunt Beatrice's house because she wrote a letter to the place where Jane was supposed to be going to be a companion to a clergy person because she never turned up there. So she wanted to write a letter to them. She wrote a letter to the Pillsbury School for Girls because she wanted them to know that Jane had got abducted on the way and they needed to get a new coachman in case he was in on it. Mm-hmm. She wrote a letter to the magistrate and basically the cops to be like, hey, there's this guy abducting women around. So she wrote a bunch of letters. So
and she wrote a letter to one of the guy who set up the job for her. He's on the board of the girl's home.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she's expecting letters back from all those people. So she's continuously going to the post office to like check.
So during that, they have this knockdown, drag out argument where he's like, you're a harpy who's taking advantage of my aunt. And she's trying to figure out how much she knows. The answer is nothing. Lady Beatrice told him that she asked Lady Beatrice how they met. Mm-hmm. And Lady Beatrice said,
she flew into my window like a good fairy.
Like a good fairy.
But first, before she leaves, she's trying to leave and she grabs the broken umbrella instead of the good umbrella. And she's like fighting with it. And he like takes it from her and it like opens like really easily. And then they have to hold the umbrella together. So they're like touching hands. It's really good.
Well, and she's like, and note to self, go get half a dozen umbrellas.
Yeah,
this will never happen again.
Working umbrellas.
Yeah. So in the cab, he's like, you're taking advantage of my aunt. And she's like, you left her to die, basically. Like,
you didn't check up on her.
How could you neglect her like that? Mm-hmm. And it's a whole thing. So she's like, do you want to know the state of your aunt? Fine. Here's the doctor I sent for. Here's why I sent for him. Like, your fancy doctor wouldn't fucking come.
It looks very suspicious that they fired her whole group of people. They tried to fire her accounts guy. They got a different doctor that prescribed her excitement. Like, everything looks very fishy. And all of these girls are now getting a stipend from Lady Beatrice because she insisted. So he's like, this is all messed up.
And bless both of them. Abby, on the one hand, is like, it makes perfect sense that he should be suspicious of me. Mm-hmm. And he, on the other hand, is like, it's weird that their stipends are so small.
Yeah.
And
so he's like, okay, yeah, I'll go see this quote unquote doctor.
Well, but first, she goes to leave and he grabs her by the arms.
Yeah, he does.
She's
presses her against the side of the coach.
It's so weird. It seems like he might just kiss me. That's odd. And then like he lets her go and it's all a thing.
Yeah. He loomed over her, his chest touching her breasts, his storm-filled eyes dark with some kind of unknowable emotion. You're hurting me, she said coldly. It wasn't true, but Abby didn't care. She was in a rage now. And his gaze dropped to her mouth, of course. And for one long, breathless, incredulous moment, she thought he was going to kiss her. And I can keep going. Sorry. I sound like you were waiting.
No, it's
with
delicious.
His next utterance, he was proved ridiculous. I'd like to strangle you, he growled. Anyway.
All right. So he goes and sees the doctor. The doctor completely not only impresses him, but also is like, those girls were a lifesaver. I was going to report them myself until I realized that they showed up the very same day they called me. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, oh shit, they've only been there for 3 weeks? Like, that doesn't line up with the letter's timing. That doesn't line up with anything. This lady was concerned way before that, so I don't get it. So he's like, I still don't trust him, but like, I'll let him stay.
And he really doesn't have a choice because Lady Beatrice isn't going to let him
she would throw a fit.
Stay. And he loves her. Yeah. So he needs to at least have them slowly go or else his aunt's never going to forgive him.
Yeah, so there's a couple of adorable things that happen because like then we watch him set up characters in the next couple of books. He visits his friend Freddie Monkton Coombs.
I love Freddie.
Freddie's the fucking best. And he only gets better. Book 2, guys. Book 2.
He refers to... So he's like, they've got these 3 women staying with my aunt, and why would they? And Freddie's like, because they're muffins. All 3 of them. He's like, dreaded muffins. Basically, it's like women that are like trying to marry you that you don't want to marry. That's what a muffin is.
That's what a muffin is.
Oh, muffins. They're so plain. They're so boring, these muffins. And there's a dinner. So it's his first night in town. And so Lady Beatrice says, will you come back for dinner at the dinner hour? And he says yes. But he doesn't think, because she's up in her room, he thinks she's an invalid. So he doesn't think she's actually coming down to dine. He thinks he was just informing her when he would be back.
Right.
So he says to Freddie, hey, Freddie was like, let's go out to the club and have fun and eat dinner at the club. And he's like, sure, I just got to stop home because I told my aunt that I would be back at the dinner hour. I'll go in for 10 minutes. I'll check on her. And he's like, Freddie, you should come in too. And he's like, and meet the muffins?
Never.
Like, I'm not meeting any muffins. And he's like, they're pretty dull. And like, so what's his face? Max just like lets him think that they're dull, even though they're all super
even though
cute.
they're all real pretty. And the plainest one
great.
he thinks is super hot. So,
So
they have an adorable dinner.
And he realizes they all dressed for dinner, and they dressed Lady Beatrice up in like a outfit that Daisy made for her. And he's like, oh shit, I guess I have to stay. So he's like, Freddie, come in and have dinner with us. And he's like, fuck that, I'm off to the club. So they have an adorable dinner where Miss Abby looks so good that she has like this white
green dress.
Oh yeah, she had the white dress. Oh wait, it was maybe a green dress, but I remember that there was white trim around her boobs because Max was just like, it looks like whipped cream. And then she kept eating this dessert with a spoon, and he's like, she's eating it normally, but I can't stop watching her eat it normally. It's really good.
It's really good. And then I think the next important thing is they go back to the post office. No, she goes to the post office and he wants to go talk to her about something, right?
Is that it?
Because, he wants to buy a house. He wants to buy a house that is not the house she's currently living in.
Right.
Lady Beatrice. So he finds a house and he wants to set it up like a home. Go ahead.
But first, Abby talks to Lady Beatrice about Max. Lady Beatrice tells her all about Max and she's her favorite, his favorite aunt and stuff. His parents shipped him off to a boarding school, and then...
Well, wait. No, they didn't. No, the mom ran off with a dude, and he was 6 at the time, and his fucking egomaniacal dad took a personal offense to poor Max's grief. Like, he missed his mom, and every time, the book says that every time Max talked about or showed that he was missing his mom, his dad reacted like it was a reminder of the cuckoldry or whatever. Like, ugh, get over yourself. The kid was grieving his mom.
Mm-hmm.
So he sends him off to boarding school, and he won't he won't send for him for Christmas or any of the holidays.
And he didn't tell Lady Beatrice that either. So the poor kid just sat there waiting for his dad to come, and he never came over Christmas. So he was like the sad kid. He was the Harry Potter.
He was the
just
Harry
sitting
Potter
at the boarding school being like, oh man, I wish I had a family for Christmas.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Or I wish they would sign my fucking permission slip so I can go home with the Weasleys. Like, can you even do that? Fuckers.
And then also during that dinner, Jane started to blurt something about the Pillsbury house.
Yes.
And she only got out like the pill, and then the other one shot her a look. So he goes and hires a private detective to be like, okay, I got these girls living. They're not sisters, even though they're claiming to be. Here's the name they've given. That's definitely not their name. The cluest clue that I have is that one of them said they used to live at something called the Pill. So I need you to go out and detective this.
Yes. So then Abby is off because he gets the house and he's like, she did a really good job of cleaning up my aunt's house. And also, I low-key likes her a lot, so I want her to help me do this stuff.
But first they have the fight.
What fight?
Post office. She goes to the post office.
That's why he goes there.
Why he goes where?
He goes to talk to her.
Oh, you're right, because he's going to go talk to her. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
So
we're at the post office.
Everybody's like, so Featherby's like, she went to the post office, and he's like, all right, fine, I'll go there too. So he gets in his newly hired carriage, and he heads over there. He sees her come out of the post office, and then he sees one guy come out, signal to another, and then they both follow her. And it is very concerning. So he gets out and he starts following them too. She starts going into back alleys or whatever because she's headed to the market and she's taking shortcuts. And all of a sudden, he sees, I think, a knife in the guy's hand or something crazy. Like he's getting close enough to her. And so he starts brawling like a trading company
and
guy
he's like,
would.
Abby, run!
And
good.
So he's trading blows with this guy. He's like disarming him and stuff.
Wait.
Then another guy comes.
No, keep going. Sorry. No, keep going.
Then
Sorry.
another guy comes.
You got momentum.
Sorry.
There's
another guy comes and then he's trading blows with both of them. Boom, boom, boom.
But he can't handle his shit. And then Abby comes out like nowhere. And they literally describe her like a spider monkey.
Like jumps on
him. strangles him from behind, is beating him with her bag. And I don't remember what they call it, but it's a fancy word for bag. I Googled it up on my Kindle. And she's like, bam, bam, bam with her bag and like pulling him down into the chokehold.
And then Max sees the blade in the guy's hand because she's on his back. He sees him swing backwards and the blade gets stuck into Abby's skirts. And it is like Max's whole life flashes before his eyes.
He's
and
like,
so he
shit,
continues
he
beating
stabbed
on
her.
Oh fuck. He manages to beat them both off. And then
Abby laying there face down on the cobblestones in the rain,
on
unconsciousness, on her back on the cobblestones.
And she's had the wind knocked out of her.
Yeah, but like I thought she was on her face, and then he turned her over.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But
and
her
then she's
breath
like,
was gone.
she can't breathe. And he's like, you just had the wind knock. Then he rakes her whole body with his fingers. He does a finger rake of her body, which is the first thing, by the way, bing, boong, bong, combat medicine with Erin. That's the first thing you got to do. You got to rake your fingers, try to find some holes. So he's going all over trying to find holes.
That rake is fingering.
Finds no holes.
Finds no holes,
no
guys.
wounds, no
so
blood.
Then he pulls her up onto his lap.
And he's like, it's okay. You just got the wind knocked out of you. And then she looks up at him with her. And I don't remember the color of her eyes, but she looks at him
brown.
with hers. Yeah. And then their lips just graze a little bit.
Just a little bit of a graze.
And then it's on.
It's
TM.
on. Oh boy, is it on!
They have the best smooch.
Such a good smooch. It goes on for like a page and a half or something, cray. Yeah. So good. They're smooching and a smooching, and it is so nice.
I could read you the whole thing, but I've already read you like half this book. But just know
it's pretty long.
That it's such a good smooch.
It's real fucking good.
But
and then
we missed a big thing.
What did we miss?
Max is betrothed to Henrietta something.
Parslow.
Because
Lady Beatrice calls her the Parsley girl.
He's been betrothed to her for the whole 9 years he's been away. And he's mentioned it several times that he's betrothed. So after like the big smooch, Abby's like, oh, I'm the worst. He's betrothed. Like, I'm a slut now.
He says, wait, this can't happen.
Yeah, because I'm betrothed. But she knew already that he was betrothed.
Yeah. And so she's like, what man would, like, I just basically threw myself at him. It's very England Times logic. I threw myself at him. He couldn't help himself. Like, because,
And she alludes to, like, I learned long ago that this is not the man's fault. This is the woman's fault. And I looked up him with my pitiful, sad, pathetic loneliness in my eyes. And that's what did it. Anyway.
All right, that's where we have to leave it this week, but we will be back next week for the absolutely breathtaking end to The Autumn Bride by Anne Gracie. All right, Erin, do you have a lady love this week?
Yes, I do. In the past 2-3 months, I have been blonde, I have been red, I have been brown, and my hairdresser, I think she has become frustrated with me because I was red for about 1.5 years probably. And then I was like, well, first I was red. Then I was half red, half blonde, which don't do that if you're in the army. I tried to do it real subtly, but it wasn't like as subtle as I would have liked. And that's not my hairdresser's fault. It was just like the bun was like a lot blonder than the red and the, So then I was all red. Then I went in there like a month ago and I was like, or a month and a half or whatever. And I was like, all blonde, bleach it all, real bleachy. I want to be a bombshell. Like, let's do this. And you saw me that week and it looked good.
I did.
For like 2 to 3 weeks. And then my roots started growing. And I was like, oh no, I can't do this. I have to have my hair in a bun every day. And so I went back and I was like, brown. Brown is the color for me. The darkest of browns. And so she's like, fucking fine, and this is the wear cunt hairdresser. So she's not shy about her opinion of what's going on here. And so then I went back and I was like, let's just do my natural color finally. And she didn't know what that was. So I had to go find some pictures of me as like a child.
Isn't it the same as mine,
exactly
which
the
is
same as yours.
Dishwater?
It is dishwater. I call it like it's a flat. It is a flat, monochromatic, methy, like a matte, which is not, I know matte is kind of chic right now, but it's not what you want in hair. It's a mousy, methy, trailer park, brownie blonde.
dishwater blonde.
It's like a gray blonde, but not an aging gray, just more like when somebody turns gray because they're sick, you know?
Okay, maybe we don't have the same, because I do have some honey highlights.
But that's because you're in the sun. I have before had honey highlights as well, but I haven't seen the sun in 9 months. So in February in Alaska, it's going to be that matte, methy blonde.
Yeah.
So she did it, and I was just like, and she's like, do you love it? And I was like, no. Like, it's not like I hate, it's not like I was just like, I can't be, you did exactly what I wanted. Congratulations, hairstylist, but I cannot get excited about it because it's not fun. But now, 3 weeks later, it's the best thing I've ever done. I'm so happy that my hair is just normal colored and I don't have to worry about it and how it's growing and stuff. And if you are in a hair crisis where you've had 4 colors in 3 months, just go back. Just go back to your roots, literally, and just be happy with who you are. Yeah, even if it's literally the worst hair color out there, which is what I've got.
Yeah, I think I did that about 7 years ago or so. I was coloring my hair all throughout college to highlight blonde, honey, gorgeous, blah. And I was like, I cannot spend money on this anymore. And B, the roots drove me crazy. Growing out my hair, going back to my natural-ish color, and then growing it out was the best thing I've done in a really,
But also,
really
if you're
long
like a pink-haired person, like, I'm not saying everybody ought to go back to natural. I'm just saying if you're in a hair crisis, this might be what you need.
Yeah, totally. Mine is, I walked into my grocery store yesterday being like, my tummy kind of hurts. I'm going to see if there's like a ginger tea situation. And all of a sudden, it was like the skies parted. A spotlight came down from the ceiling of the grocery store and illuminated before me was Lipton's Soothe Your Tummy tea. It's got ginger, it's got fennel, it's got a bunch of other herbs that will do wonders for your tummy parts. So if you're feeling a little nauseous, if, for example, somebody gave you a 24-hour stomach flu.
Or you ate a handful of drumsticks after not having meat for years.
Right. Or you couldn't keep out of the Chewy bars. Then maybe.
That's not a stomach condition.
Yeah.
That is my intolerance. My intolerance.
Yeah. Check out some Lipton Soothe Your Tummy.
I think this episode has been the most callback heavy of any of the episodes. I feel like this is one of those episodes. You're not going to even get it, guys, unless you've listened to our whole catalog. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
We're too deep in the story. You're not going to get it. You have to go back from the beginning. All right. Is that it?
All right, guys. Yeah. We are all the places that you want to find us.
Instagram.
Yeah.
At Heaving Bosoms. Twitter. At Heaving_Bosoms. Facebook. Heaving Bosoms Podcast. Facebook. Heaving Bosoms Geriatric Friendship Cult. That's the club. The group. And Heaving Bosoms Podcast at gmail.com. Heaving Bosoms Podcast.com, which is the website. It's occurred to me that, like, social media, for the most part, I can just blast out easily on my phone. The website, to update it, I have to actually sit down at my computer, which is kind of hard when I travel a lot. So the website... Yeah,
so it might be a little bit
the website might have a lag. I apologize for that. Yeah. And soon we're going to... By the time you're hearing this, we'll probably have announced the next 4 books. Probably. Yeah.
Maybe. If we feel like it.
Yeah, if we're nice.
Yeah. If you're good to us.
We sound so asshole. We love you so much.
We're
we love
such
it.
Dicks.
Melanie took a screenshot of whoever, I think it was Elizabeth, said something like, we've got to needle them or wouldn't be taskmasters or whatever. You sent a screenshot and she's like, these girls are so funny.
And I was like, hilarious.
Really, though, we hadn't put it out because we were going to shake it up a little bit maybe and insert a book in that was like a new book coming out maybe. So that's why we were kind of hesitating on it. There's usually a reason why we haven't given you information. Like last week, I didn't announce.
You should just
I
trust
didn't preview the episode on social media because we legit weren't sure if we were going to have an episode out because the editing was going rough. So if I'm not telling you, it's
Whoopsies.
probably there's a reason. It's not just because we're assholes.
Right.
Probably. Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Keep being a badass.
And love yourself as much as you love drinking 5-gallon jars of applesauce. And Melody loves that. So that's a lot. Love yourselves a lot.
All right.
Bye now.
Bye, Erin.
Hi, I'm Nicole,
Sarah.
Hillary.
and we're the hosts of the Feminine Mistake podcast.
Each month we sit down with a guest to watch movies that are 20 years or older.
And see how they hold up to today's modern feminist lens.
Why do mermaids have such low self-esteem?
Why is it so funny when men take care of babies?
What exactly did Jenny die of in Love Story?
These are the kind of hard questions we ask ourselves on the Feminine Mistake podcast. The Feminine Mistake podcast, now available on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Podbean. Do you guys think that was okay?
Yeah, I don't know. We sounded kind of shrill.
Really?
Yeah, women's voices are just so grating on the radio.
Yeah.
Oh man, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever heard those guys over at the Nerdist or Last Podcast on the Left? I mean, they're just biologically more funny than we are.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Hey, you. Yes, listener, you. Are you loving the show? If so, please leave a rating and review in your podcast app. The 90 seconds you take to say something nice not only helps new people find the show, but it makes me super smile over at HBHQ. Also, I've had a few people ask, and the answer is yes. We are still doing the 5-star bribe. If you leave us a review with 5 stars, then we'll do whatever book you want. We're real deep into the list, though, so it might be a while. Lilas! Okay, back to the show.